So there's a question we all need to ask ourselves, and the question is, what do we love? What motivates you to live? Why are you doing the things we do? And we can get caught up in a cycle of doing things just for the sake of doing them, and we forget, what is it that we love? Why do we do what we do? What are we seeking? And it's a question you ask. What is it that you're seeking in your life? Are you seeking love? Are you seeking peace? Are you seeking kindness? And what are the things that you're seeking in your life? There's one of the books that I'll dip in from time to time. It has a paragraph, and it says this. It says, if you are passionate about seeking justice, renewing culture, and taking up your vocation to unfurl all of creation's potential, you need to invest in the formation of your imagination. Think about that. Invest in the formation of your imagination. You need to curate your heart. Do we actually ever pay attention to what it is we're curating with our heart? Are we curating our heart? So you need to curate your heart. You need to worship well because you are what you love. And you worship what you love, and you might not love what you think. And that is a big question for us. What is it that we love? What are we doing? Why are we following? Why are we here? Today, it does mark the final week of our stewardship study, our stewardship series called Treasures of the Transformed Life. We've been talking about how we as individuals and as the church are transformed by God's image, that He is making us new. He's creating us to be new, and how we can be filled with living waters of His life, of Jesus Christ, to flow with His grace and truth. And we've talked about, how do we do this? How do we step into God's grace? But by the means of grace that He gives us, and that some of the primary ones are through prayer. We connect God through prayer, and it's through being present in worship, that we need each other in worship, and we need to remember that we are worshiping God to make sure that God is God and we are not. So praying, being present, worshiping together, and the giving of our money, of giving a gift that changes who we are in our giving, and the other is, how do we serve? How do we serve one another in this world, and serving with our gifts? So today we're talking about letting go. How do you step into that? To take on something new, that means you have to let go of something old. But the question is, do we understand what it is we're letting go of, and what it is that we're stepping in that's new? How do we do that? And so today, how do we consecrate our lives to what matters? So the question I have is, what really matters to you? What do you want? What do you love? Now, we all say things, generally, and if I were to ask the kids Sunday morning, go, what is the thing you love? And oftentimes kids will always answer with the answer you're supposed to give on Sundays, which is Jesus. I know you're timid. I don't know if the kids have the right answer. They'll say Jesus. Jesus or God or church. Those are one of the three answers that we'll give in those moments of saying, this is what I need to do. And so we say, what is it we love? But I think what we do is we end up stating the things that we think we love instead of actually looking at what it is. What does it mean when we say we love Jesus? What does it mean when we say we love God? What does it look like in our lives? So I want to begin with Luke chapter 9. And Luke is one of the Gospels. It's one of the first four Gospels in the New Testament. It's right in the center of the Bible, just about. And it is the third of the Gospel. Which Gospel, if you're not familiar with the word, good news. And so Luke was one of the writers of this, and he's recounting some of the stories of Jesus. And in Luke 9, Jesus says this. He says, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? There's some strong language in there. The idea of denying ourselves. It's so countercultural to everything that we hear. Every commercial that you have ever seen, especially the ones that you will see from now till the end of January, will be about how you need to... In the words of Aziz Ansari in Parks and Rec, you know what it is? Treat yourself. And so that's what it is. It's all about that. Consumerism says you need to treat yourself and buy others. As a matter of fact, if you really love someone, you need to go feverishly into debt so that you can afford to keep them around in your life. That's what they're telling you. But do you hear the absurdity of that? Please say you hear the absurdity of that. That if, in order to show real love, we have to go into. So Jesus turns that around and says, deny yourself. Deny yourself. It's countercultural to our way of life. A consumeristic, materialistic world is to deny ourselves. And so what does he mean by that? Well, in chapter 8, we have to go a little bit before, Jesus starts doing these incredible things. He does, he's intellectually challenged. People come up and say, hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And Jesus answers with dexterous precision with his intellect. It's incredible what he does. And then he ends up, he heals the sick, and he comforts those who are weary, and he calms a storm in the middle of the lake there. He feeds 5,000 people with just a few bread and fish. And he ends up empowering his disciples. He says, now I want you to go out and do these same things. And they do. And then they come back and he sits with them. He goes, who does the world say, who does everybody say that I am? And they say, well, some say you're the reincarnation of John the Baptist. Some say you're Isaiah. And he says, well, who do you say that I am? And Peter says, you are Christ. You are Jesus. You are the one who has come to set all things right. You are the promised one of God to make all things new. Essentially is what Peter is saying. And then Jesus says, you've answered correctly. God has given you these words to speak. And then Jesus says, this is what's going to happen to me. I'm going to be betrayed. I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to be killed. Now, all of us, we would say the same thing Peter says. God forbid that happen. We just said that you're the promised one to fix everything. Now you're saying you're going to die. We're not going to let that happen. And Jesus rebukes Peter, and he says, you need to stop. You're speaking of what you don't know about, essentially. See, Peter tries to deny the sacrifice that Jesus is talking about. And so Jesus rebukes him and essentially says, think about all this ability that we've just seen in Luke, chapters 8 and 9, we get to 10. Peter, and he's got all this ability, this skill, this power, and he goes, I want you to give it away. If you were to follow me, deny yourself, take up this burden of the life of I've called you to live, and follow me, and use it to serve the kingdom of God. Deny yourself and take up your sacrificial burden of the cross and follow me. Now this is the unflattering, nitty-gritty part of how do we follow Jesus Christ. Now we can look at it and think that what Jesus is doing is adding a burden. If you want to live the mystical life, if you want to live the life of sacrifice, then you need to be denying yourself and live a life of misery. You can think that. But I want to tell you that I think what Jesus is doing is offering us liberation and hope. He's saying you need to deny these things because you treating yourself is killing yourself. Our nation struggles with debt. It's extraordinary the amount of debt that we are in as a people and as a nation. And part of this is because we've fallen into this idea of that in order for me to have a fulfilling life, I have to never deny myself. And Jesus says, I want you to deny yourself because you're killing yourself. This burden, this weight that you're putting on your life is destroying you. It's scary to give God control of our life. I tell you, it's very scary. It's unsettling. I want to just go by what I think, to serve God's agenda, not our own. So we really have to ask ourselves that question, what do I really want? What is it that God is really offering? What do you love? What do you need to let go of? How many here know how to catch a raccoon? Well, I'm going to teach you how to catch a raccoon. See, I come from a family of rednecks. My grandmother was named Bubba. Hey, you want to try to out-redneck my family? We had an Uncle Arwood, that's his real name. Arwood lived in a double wide. He was a trapper, and he grew all his own vegetables and trapped all his own meat. I did not live near this part of my family, but every once in a while I need to go back and get in touch with my redneckiness. But one of the ways you catch a raccoon is that you can take a jar or something that has a small neck in it. Raccoons have their little freakishly human-looking hands, and they stick them into this jar, and you put something shiny in there, because all it takes is a little shiny thing and to attract a raccoon. And so the raccoon will see this shiny thing in the jar, will stick its little paw in the jar, grab the shiny thing. Now, as soon as it makes a fist, guess what happens? It's Winnie the Pooh. Can't get his hand out of the jar. It's stuck in there. And so the pull, instead of letting go of the shiny thing, It would rather be imprisoned. The only way for that raccoon to be free is to let go of the shiny thing. And then it can be free. That's all it would take. But it won't do us. Too many of us are like these raccoons. We're not letting go of the shiny thing to be free. And Jesus is saying, I want to give you freedom. And so ask yourself, what is it that you think you might need to let go of? What is it that you might need to let go of to be free, to live the life that God has called you to live? What we love forms us. Again, we have an intellectual idea about what forms us, and not always a hard idea. We have a thinking idea of what life and love is without the practice idea, the practical idea. We've succumbed to the idea of Descartes would say, I think, therefore I am, and explore that whole philosophy. It's very interesting. But I think how we really live is that I desire, therefore I become. And so we end up becoming the things that we desire. I think about a baby. A baby doesn't think. A little tiny baby, is when a baby gets hungry, the baby isn't thinking, you know, what I would really like at this time is a low-fat soy breast. And that's what I'm looking for. And a baby is compelled biologically to seek out something that is healthy, nutritious. It's driven by a desire, by a want, and that need initially is healthy. But if other things are introduced to that baby, you suddenly give that baby sugar, is going to want that instead. And every parent has been there, like, oh, you know, it was fun that I introduced chocolate. Maybe I shouldn't have. But we introduce something into the diet too early, it will override the healthy desire. Its desires are changed without thinking. It's changed through action. And it's by action that we have to step out of it. It's one thing for us to say, you know, I want to follow Jesus. I want to do good things. I want to live the life that God has called me. I want to be free. It's another thing to actually practice the things that do it. We say we want to stop doing all these unhealthy things, but if we don't pay attention to the healthy things to do, we'll just be formed by something else. You know, it's great that you gave up cocaine for alcoholism. You know, it's kind of what we end up doing. This is why Jesus' first question to his disciples is, what do you want? He says, what do you seek? What are you longing for? What are you looking for? We need to ask ourselves that question daily. What is it I long for? It's an important first question to ask, and it helps us hear ourselves articulate what it is we really want. When we say that I want to hide, someone's like, I just want to hide. I want to be loved. I want peace. I want to stop being angry. I want this. I want that. What we're often saying is that we want to be connected. The reason it's the same way a baby is designed to want healthy nutrition, we are designed to be connected in connection with each other. We're designed for more. We're wired to love. We're wired to be loved. We're wired to belong. But our wires over time have become crossed, and somewhere along the line, we started craving foods that tasted good but left us unsatisfied. The way of consumerism, it's destroying us. There's a lot of wonderful thing about our Western culture, but one of the things that is just killing us is our desire to have more and more and more. I don't know how many of you remember the recession in the early 2000s, and some of you might remember it better than others. What I remember in the middle of it, being told that the reason we're here is because of our massive amount of spending beyond our means, that we are in a credit crisis, that you are here because you spent more than you make, that you've relied too much on credit, on debt. And so we're in great debt because of our spending. And at the very same week, remember reading the government telling us, so what you need to do is have more confidence and spend more so you can spend your way out of debt. That's the answer. It's like, oh, if you're not spending your money, then the markets go down. And so we've created a system in which we're consuming ourselves. Now, I wanted you to think about this. Do you think people were happy 100 years ago? Yes. People were happy 100 years ago. I'll give you the answer. And here's the thing. Did someone ask their neighbor? Is that what? Were you here 100 years? And just about. Neil, why are they pointing at you, man? Here's the thing. Everything in your house did not even exist 100 years ago. Even the phone that existed then, even the phone that existed 30 years ago, no one uses anymore. There was a thing on Ellen where someone was trying to use a rotary phone. It was hysterical. They couldn't do it. And most of us in here are like, what? You pick up, you die. But they couldn't do it. Most of the things that we have now that you think that you need in your life did not exist even 20 years ago. Most of the things that we are going into debt to receive did not exist. We're spending more monies on the cars that we want now and the way we do it now than we did about 30 years ago, 20 and 30 years ago. So I remember being told, my dad told me, he says, if you can get your car loan at 3 years, if you have to, do 4 years. Now it's 6, 7, and 8 years. It's an amazing thing. The way of consumerism, of hoarding, of demanding our own way, of assuming the worst, of living only for itself is killing us. They're all unhealthy expressions of a healthy desire to be loved by God and serve God. And so Jesus says, look, deny yourself. Deny yourself. It will bring you to freedom and hope and life. This is why we need to pay attention to what we consume, because it might not bring us what we truly love. Augustine wrote, God has made us for yourself, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. You have made us for yourself, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. In John 10, Jesus says that he is the good shepherd. Read that today. If you read anything, read John 10 today. It's beautiful. He says, though the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and to have it, do you know the last word? Abundantly. Abundantly. Real abundance. That's the invitation. Jesus says, take note of your life. What do you really want? The things of the world will break you, but if you trust me, surrender your life to me, and deny yourself, you may actually find what it is your heart truly longs for, as Augustine talks about. What I love is that Jesus' invitation is wrapped in reality, and he says, try it. The psalmist says, taste and see that the Lord is good. It's an offering. Try this. There's so many things we can go, I'd love to read about joy, but how do I actually practice this? That's what today is about. The day of consecration is about, is that Scripture says, here are different means of grace that will help you deny yourself and discover real life that will fill you with life. But you have to try it to believe it. I can't convince you otherwise unless you try it. How many of you have ever flown a paper airplane? Okay, how you make a paper airplane, you fold the piece of paper in half, fold the ends down to a triangle, you fold that over and you throw it. It's magnificent. It's a great feeling. It's the greatest thing, cheap, that someone can do. Now, I can tell you how to do it, and you can go home and maybe you can replicate it, and you can go, wow, that does sound great. But until you actually do it and have somebody walk alongside you, you can forget what joy is. Take out your piece of paper. How you make a paper airplane. I'm going to give you a simple design. You take the piece of paper lengthways like this, fold it in half. There are many different ways. You can fold whatever plane you like, but if you haven't made one in a while, you fold your paper in half, get a crease right down the middle, and you're going to take your corner, your pointy end, if you will, and you're going to fold that down so you make a triangle shape. And use that crease as a guideline. So fold it down to your crease, and then get you a sharp fold over it. Then you're going to take the other end, replicate that. If you have a neighbor that's having trouble, this is your opportunity to be the church and help them out. Fold that over. So now you might have something that looks like this. If you want to make it even more streamlined, you can do one more fold. You can take this corner, fold it down again till it goes to the middle. Remember, smooth lines. Smooth lines, lovely little trees. So we could Bob Ross this. You can take the other corner and you're going to pull it. And so then you're going to have a crease down the middle. You should have something that looks like this. Then you take that and you fold that in half. Fold that in half. Boom. When you do that, then you can take this end, fold it about halfway down, maybe 3/4 down, and make your wings. See? Boom, boom. And replicate that, duplicate that on the other side. And now you have an airplane. Now it's great that you have an airplane. You've been given all the tools that you need to have an airplane. But the airplane does not become fun until you throw the airplane. So if you like, feel free to aim. Let's see who can make it to me. Watch your eyeballs. Whoa. Is that you? Nice. Oh. So, anybody get hit in the back of the head? He needs it right there, right as I said it. That's good. Dave, that is impressive. Yours went backwards. You threw this one? That one? Oh, well done, well done. All right. And see what joy. When was the last? I had at one, I did this at one church I was at, the idea of throwing the paper airplane, and there was a lady in there that was 80 years old, and she'd never made a paper airplane. And she was delighted. So many of us in our life, we've yet to taste and see what God's goodness is. He's offering us to say, come in. There is joy in it. If there is joy in something as simple as what you just did there, can you imagine how much more when we begin to taste the love of God and share that? And how do we do that? By experiencing, by practicing. Charlie Peacock, a songwriter, wrote, you can only possess what you experience. You can only possess what you experience. Truth to be understood must be lived. And that's what today is about. It's about living out the truth we've called to live, about becoming a church that is alerting people to the universal reign of Jesus Christ, about letting go of the things that are breaking us and taking up the practices of something else that God is calling us into be. The church, talking about the church universal, is one of the greatest creations that God has done to explicitly show his physical presence in this world that is in desperate need of life and love and liberty. And we only do that when we come together as a people who are committed to praying, who are committed to being present in worship, who are committed to giving beyond themselves and committed to serving one another. And that's what today is about. And so in just a moment, I'm going to invite the band to go ahead and come up and get ready. And we're going to have a time of consecration. And don't worry if you step on the paper that's on the ground. But we've given those. We've given these out in the bulletin, and if you'd like to fill those out, you're welcome to do that. We mail these out to you. There's also the service form that we've put out there. If you're still praying on it, you can bring it next week. We'll have these out for a few weeks. But today, if you're looking at committing your life, what we're saying is this isn't about, while this does pay our bills, it's about so much more. It's about saying, God, I want to trust you with all of who I am. I want to consecrate myself. I want to covenant with my church family and live out and practice out a faith that is beyond me to begin to live and experience it. And so I'm asking you this morning as we sing this last song and to come up and just place your cards in here. And I get it, if this is your first time you're visiting with us, I'm not expecting you to, you're welcome to. But I don't want you to look at this as an obligation that I'm asking you to do something. Looking at it as some way that you can worship God in a very unique way and surrender your lives and live that out over the next year. And so, as we sing, we invite you to come and bring your gifts.